Welcome to the deep dive. Today is September 11th, 2025, and that marks the 24th anniversary of a day that, well, it profoundly reshaped our world. This isn't just another date, it's really a moment for solemn remembrance, for reflection on an event that fundamentally changed, well, everything: global security, national identity, so many individual lives. Our mission today is to respectfully unpack the events of that devastating day. We'll look at the immediate global response, the enduring legacy, drawing from a range of sources that chronicle this really pivotal moment. But first, before we really get into it, we want to honor the nearly 3,000 souls lost. The 9/11 Commission report gives us the stark numbers. Over 2,600 people died at the World Trade Center, 125 at the Pentagon, and 256 people died on the four hijacked planes. So this deep dive is for you, our listener, to gain hopefully a thorough but concise understanding of what happened, how the world reacted, and why it still resonates so deeply today. Let's try to cast our minds back. September 11th, 2001. It started like any Tuesday morning, really, but it quickly devolved into just unimaginable horror. Four commercial airliners hijacked. Two of them, American Airlines Flight 11 and United 175, were deliberately flown into the north and south towers of the World Trade Center in New York. The impact was just catastrophic. The south tower, though it was hit second, it collapsed first. That was 9:59 a.m. And then just 29 minutes later, the north tower followed. I remember the images vividly. Lower Manhattan just consumed by clouds of smoke, debris everywhere, panic in the streets. And those fires, they smoldered for over 3 months. At the same time, American Airlines Flight 77 hit the Pentagon in Virginia, 125 people killed there. And then there was United Flight 93. It was intended for another target, we believe, but the passengers and crew, they heroically fought back. The plane crashed into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The sheer scope of it was almost impossible to process in the moment.
It really was. And it's that sheer scale of loss, the deliberate targeting of civilians, of symbols of American power, that just resonated so deeply and so immediately across the globe. One thing that really struck me looking back at the sources was that global reaction. The French newspaper Le Monde famously declared, "We are all Americans now." A powerful sentiment. And it wasn't just Western allies. Even in Tehran, Iran, thousands gathered for candlelight vigils. It showed this widespread feeling of solidarity. It really underscored how interconnected the world felt even then. This wasn't just seen as an American tragedy. The 9/11 Commission report was quite clear. The perpetrators were 19 young Arab men acting for Islamic extremists, specifically al-Qaeda. And that, of course, immediately raised incredibly complex questions about this new kind of global threat. And beyond that immediate tragedy, the health consequences, especially for first responders, residents in New York, they were immediate and they were lasting. Many developed what became known as WTC cough syndrome. It's a chronic sinus infection, often with asthma or bronchitis-like symptoms, gastroesophageal reflux disease too, all caused by inhaling those toxic particulates from the debris. It was this silent, ongoing cost long after the initial destruction.
That silent, ongoing cost that really brings home the long-term impact, doesn't it? Okay, let's shift focus a bit to the origins. It's frankly chilling to think about the meticulous planning involved. From our sources, who really emerges as the key operational planner? And what about his background helps us understand maybe the path to such destruction?
Well, the sources consistently point to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, often called KSM. He's identified as the key operational planner. His background is quite telling. He joined the Muslim Brotherhood when he was just 16. Later, he actually attended college right here in the United States, graduated in '86. After that, he traveled to Pakistan, then Afghanistan to wage jihad against the Soviet Union. And this wasn't his first major plot against the U.S. either. He was involved in an earlier failed plot in the mid-90s called Bojinka. The aim was to blow up American planes over Asia. So it really highlights this long-standing, chilling ambition to strike the U.S. It shows a clear threat, an escalation of intent.
A singular, enduring objective. Wow. And it wasn't just KSM, right? Our sources suggest some of the other plotters were radicalized in places you might not expect, far from traditional conflict zones. What does that tell us?
That's a really insightful point. Some of the plotters, including 3 of the 4 pilots and key figure Ramzi bin al-Shibh, they became more radicalized while living in Hamburg, Germany. And this phenomenon, radicalization happening in seemingly ordinary Western environments, it offers a crucial insight, I think. It suggests that things like perceived discrimination, alienation, maybe even homesickness, can fuel these ideological echo chambers. These can become really potent incubators for extremism, regardless of location. Sometimes isolation is a more powerful factor than being near a conflict zone. They then actively sought out al-Qaeda in Afghanistan around 1999. Their communication methods were also disturbingly clever, using coded language to hide their plans in plain sight. The lead hijacker, Mohammed Atta, for instance, he sent emails to bin al-Shib. He pretended bin al-Shib was his girlfriend, Jenny. In one, he wrote something like, the first semester commences in 3 weeks, 19 certificates for private education and 4 exams. 19 certificates, that was code for the 19 hijackers. And the 4 exams, the 4 targets.
Using language like that, just everyday student talk. For something so sinister, it's deeply unsettling. Were there other examples of these coded messages that stood out in the sources?
Absolutely. There's a particularly chilling riddle Atta posed to bin al-Shib on August 29, 2001. He asked, 2 sticks, a dash, and a cake with a stick down. What is it? Bin al-Shib understood it immediately. 2 sticks for 11, the dash, and the cake with the stick down for 9, September 11th. He then passed that date and the scope of the attack to bin Laden in Afghanistan. It's just a stark reminder of how these plots were hidden.
Right. So the attacks happen. The aftermath triggers this immediate widespread demand for accountability. And a global response. Internationally, NATO invokes Article 5. That had never happened before. That clause, an attack on one is an attack on all, it instantly unified the alliance.
Exactly. And that led directly to the military action against Afghanistan starting October 7, 2001, targeting al-Qaeda and the Taliban regime that was harboring them.
And domestically, the 9/11 Commission report, it didn't just list errors, did it? It's famously talked about a failure of imagination.
Yeah, for those listening who follow this closely, what does that actually mean, a failure of imagination in intelligence terms? How did that reshape things?
Well, the commission phrased it as failures of imagination, policy, capabilities, and management, a whole spectrum. But failure of imagination specifically meant the intelligence community just hadn't conceived of an attack quite like this. Coordinated, ambitious, using commercial planes as weapons. They couldn't connect the dots on threats that didn't fit the usual models. And there were critical operational failures highlighted too, like the CIA's handling of 2 specific hijackers, Nawaf al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Midhar. They had attended a known terrorist meeting in Kuala Lumpur way back in January 2000. But afterwards, they entered the U.S. using their real names. They managed to rent an apartment, get driver's licenses, open bank accounts, buy a car, even take flight lessons, all under their own names. And they weren't put on a watch list until late August 2001, just weeks before the attacks. It points to a really profound lapse in information sharing and tracking.
That's a truly stunning oversight, given what happened. Was there a similar breakdown within the FBI regarding information handling?
Yes, there were similar issues. The case of Zacarias Moussaoui is often cited. An FBI agent in Minneapolis suspected Moussaoui might be planning a hijacking. He noted Moussaoui's suspicious flight training and travel to Pakistan. And there was even a CIA briefing circulating titled, "Islamic Extremist Learns to Fly." But FBI headquarters determined there wasn't enough probable cause to get a warrant to search his computer. That computer, it turns out, might have revealed his connection to Belshib, potentially uncovering parts of the plot. It really suggests systemic problems in assessing threats that didn't fit neat criminal boxes.
So in response to these failures, Congress acted very quickly, the USA Patriot Act.
Very quickly. It significantly expanded search and surveillance powers for law enforcement. Though many provisions were temporary, intended to sunset, covered a lot of ground, strengthening efforts against international money laundering, enhancing border protection, things like monitoring foreign students, requiring machine-readable passports. It also aimed to remove obstacles to terrorism investigations and bolstered criminal laws against terrorism, like getting rid of the statute of limitations for some offenses.
A rapid and unprecedented expansion of government power, clearly driven by that sense of urgency and fear. But our sources also note this wasn't without controversy, right? There was significant public debate.
Well, absolutely. It sparked intense debate about the balance between national security and civil liberties.
Yes.
That became a major theme. You saw this reflected in things like the 2004 documentary Fahrenheit 9/11. It was very critical of the Bush administration's actions around 9/11 and became hugely commercially successful, the highest grossing documentary at the time. But it was also very polarizing. It won awards like the Palme d'Or at Cannes, but also Golden Raspberry Awards for figures like President Bush and Donald Rumsfeld. We're just reporting what the sources say about its reception, of course.
All right, presenting the range of reactions is key. And the Patriot Act itself, did it acknowledge the potential risks, like discrimination?
It did, actually. That's an important point the sources raise. The act included language expressing the sense of Congress condemning discrimination against Arab and Muslim Americans. It explicitly acknowledged the risk of backlash and acts of violence against these communities following 9/11. It even noted the heroism of individuals like Mohammed Salman Hamdani. He was a 23-year-old New Yorker of Pakistani descent, an NYPD cadet and EMT. He went straight to the World Trade Center to help rescue people and tragically died there that day. His story was highlighted as part of that anti-discrimination acknowledgement. It showed an awareness, at least on paper, of needing to protect civil rights even amidst the security push.
That's a crucial piece of context. Beyond legislation, what other major structural or policy shifts happened almost immediately after 9/11?
Well, there were huge institutional changes. The Cabinet-level Department of Homeland Security, DHS, was created. It merged 22 different federal agencies, trying to unify efforts and improve coordination for domestic security, a massive undertaking. And then there was the use of Guantanamo Bay in Cuba for detainees captured in the War on Terror. Initially holding around 800 prisoners, it was chosen, controversially, because it was believed to be outside the full reach of U.S. law at the time. And on the foreign policy front, in early 2002, President Bush announced a new doctrine of preemptive war. He identified an axis of evil, Iran, Iraq, North Korea, and stated very clearly, if we wait for threats to fully materialize, we will have waited too long. This doctrine fundamentally shifted U.S. foreign policy and ultimately provided justification for the Iraq War in 2003, even though, as the sources confirm, there was no evidence linking Saddam Hussein's government directly to the 9/11 attacks.
A massive reorientation indeed. So, as the years passed, the nation started grappling not just with policy, but with memory, with rebuilding, trying to fill that physical and emotional void. The transformation of the World Trade Center site itself is probably the most visible sign of that. One World Trade Center opened in 2014, that towering 1,776-foot skyscraper. It's become such an iconic part of the skyline again. And right next to it, the National September 11 Memorial and Museum. The memorial opened in 2011, the museum in 2014. They serve as the central place for remembrance and education.
And the memorial itself is incredibly powerful, I think. The design invites reflection. You have these twin one-acre reflecting pools. They sit precisely in the footprints of the original Twin Towers. And the waterfalls cascading into them, they're actually the largest man-made waterfalls in North America. Edging the pools are bronze panels, inscribed with the names of every victim from the 2001 attacks and also those from the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. It really raises that profound question, doesn't it? How do societies choose to remember trauma? Moving beyond just listing names to creating a space for genuine contemplation. And there's the survivor tree.
Ah, yes. Tell us about that.
It's a calorie pear tree. It was found amidst the rubble at Ground Zero,
Wow.
incredibly damaged but somehow still alive. It's carefully removed, nursed back to health over years, and then returned to the Memorial Plaza in 2010. It stands there now, a really living symbol of resilience. It's quite moving.
That is a beautiful symbol, absolutely. And inside the museum, what elements really drive home the story and the impact for visitors?
The museum uses artifacts and design in very powerful ways. You enter through this glass pavilion, and inside are two massive 80-foot trident-shaped steel columns from the North Tower's original facade. They immediately convey the scale of the structure and the destruction. Then there's the Memorial Hall. It's adorned with nearly 3,000 blue watercolor tiles. Each one is unique, an artist's attempt to capture the color of the sky on that clear September morning. And on the wall, there's that poignant quote from Virgil, "No day shall erase you from the memory of time." Visitors also see parts of the original foundation, like a surviving retaining wall, the slurry wall, and the last column. It's a final steel beam removed from the site, covered in messages, memorials, photos left by recovery workers. It really reflects the human toll and that spirit of solidarity during the cleanup. And the global impact isn't forgotten. There's a multimedia exhibit along one of the ramps down into the main space. It features reminiscences, memories from people from 43 different countries, speaking in 28 languages. It really reinforces that this wasn't just an American event. It touched the entire world. 24 years on, this ongoing process of understanding, of confronting the implications of 9/11, it's still so vital. Making sure we learn from the event itself and maybe just as importantly from the response.
Absolutely. The events of September 11th, 2001, they didn't just reshape policy and skylines, they etched themselves into the collective memory of a generation. A really stark reminder of vulnerability, but also, as you said, of resilience. So, as we reflect today on the 24th anniversary of this pivotal day, we want to hear from you, our listeners. Where were you on September 11, 2001? What were you doing? What was your reaction as you saw or heard the news unfolding? Please share your thoughts, your memories in the comment section wherever you're listening to this. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.